Welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show. This time we take an in-depth look at Porsche's all-electric estate car, the Taycan Sport Turismo.
We also have BMW's new X4 and the 2022 Chevrolet SIlverado.
Plus the new Mercedes C-Class and the Genesis G70 Shooting Brake. That's all coming up. First though, the news.
The finalists at the World Car of the Year Awards have been announced, with the winner to be revealed in April. The 10 finalists will be judged by motoring journalists from around the world, with the ultimate winner due to be announced at the New York International Auto Show later this year. The 10-car shortlist is made up of 4 EVs, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, Audi Q4 e-tron and Ford Mustang Mach-E, while the Lexus NX, Cupra Formentor, Hyundai Tucson and new Honda Civic make up the hybrids. The remaining 2 cars are the only unelectrified ones, the new Toyota GR86/Subaru BRZ sports car and the Genesis G70, which we're looking at next.
In times gone by, the term shooting brake usually referred to a coach-built 2-door estate car built to give your grand tourer that extra bit of boot space. These days, however, a shooting brake tends just to be a slightly curvy estate car. Think Mercedes CLA and Volkswagen Arteon. This time it's the Genesis G70, the new executive shooting brake from Hyundai's Porsche sub-brand. Priced at Audi A4 and BMW 3 Series money, it's a Korean take on a traditionally very European corner of the market. So how have they got on? Well, starting with the styling, we think it looks pretty good. It's elegant but distinctive thanks to that unique shield-shaped grille and split headlights which are mirrored at the back. As you'd expect given its shooting brake moniker, the roofline is much more steeply raked than your average estate. There's no rear window behind the C-pillar either, making it look almost like a long wheelbase hatchback. There's no denying its presence though. It looks aggressive and sporty too thanks to the slick rear spoiler and the dual exhausts. Inside the cabin, the G70 doesn't look quite as modern as some of its rivals, but it's all there, including a smart 10.25-inch infotainment screen. It's trimmed nicely too with some knurled switchgear and quilted leather. Unfortunately, however, while the tapered roofline might look good, it does hamper both passenger and boot space, limited to 465 litres, a fair way off the likes of the Audi A4 Avant and Volvo V60. Under the skin, the G70 shares its platform with the Kia Stinger, a car that we're big fans of. Despite being a new car here in the UK, the new G70 is a facelift of a car Genesis has been selling elsewhere since 2017. As a result, there are no hybrid options, with buyers getting the choice of either 197 brake horsepower 2.2 litre diesel or a 2-litre petrol motor producing 194 or 241 horsepower depending on the spec. The latter can get to 62 miles per hour from rest in 6.4 seconds, topping out at 146. Sadly, the big V6 of the Stinger GTS is not available in UK models, and neither is the all-wheel drive system, with all models sending power to the rear wheels only. The G70 shooting brake then seems like a left-field choice against its ultra-accomplished German rivals. It has a whiff of Infinity about it, and we suspect it'll be a pretty rare sight on the roads.
Recently on the show, we featured the all-electric Chevrolet SIlverado EV, Chevy's first attempt at an electric pickup truck. What we neglected to mention, however, was that the regular gas-powered version has been updated too. Unlike the EV, the fossil-fueled Silverado can't boast a horsepower figure surpassing the 600 mark, nor would its contemporary styling fit a futuristic setting. However, it does represent good value for money as the cheapest of the three big American pickups. At just over $30,000, it's over $1,000 less than the top-selling Ford F-150 and a whopping $5,000 less than the entry-level Ram 1500 Trademan. Compared to last year's Silverado, the new model has been refreshed both inside and out. Additional chrome strips above the front grille somewhat help bring the car's look in line with the Equinox and Silverado electric vehicles, while the cabin feels much more up-to-date with its slick new infotainment. The chunky dashboard is clearly very practically focused, with lots of cubby holes and storage bins. Base trim levels are simplistic with work life in mind. The high country trim level, however, is adorned with wood, leather upholstery and a neatly integrated 13-inch touchscreen. Top of the range, though, is this, the ZR2. The somewhat sporty take on the pickup keeps the same 420 horsepower 6.2-litre V8, but does get a bunch of off-road focused additions. Multimatic dampers and huge 33-inch tyres help to create a smooth ride, while locking front and rear differentials are essential for those planning on taking their truck off-road. To ensure everyone knows you've got a ZR2, it gets a host of bespoke styling tweaks. It gets a restyled front bumper with a rugged skid plate, and much of the chrome trim has been ditched. Prices for the ZR2 are yet to be announced, but it will arrive in dealerships in the spring.
The outgoing Mercedes C-Class has sold 2.5 million units since it came to market in 2014. It's an enormously successful car for the brand, so you might imagine that when designing a replacement, Mercedes pulled out all the stops. Well, this is it, the new C-Class, and at first it may seem like Mercedes has undercooked it. For example, it shares the same platform as the old car, albeit a revised version of it. Then there's the styling. Yes, it looks good. It's current and sleek, but it's not a huge change from the old one, and certainly not as striking as some of Merc's other new cars we've seen in the last 12 months. So, has Mercedes just played it safe? Well, you only have to take a quick look inside to see that the new C-Class is far from just a facelift. Inspired by the incredible new S-Class, the beautifully sculpted dashboard flows into the center console. There are some stylish new air vents and a chunky new steering wheel. The most striking new feature, though, must surely be the impressive 11.9-inch portrait infotainment screen. It comes as standard on all UK spec cars and can be linked directly to the user's various accounts, including Spotify. It can even be linked to your smart home devices, allowing you, for example, to turn up your central heating before you get home directly from your car. Another screen sits in front of the driver in place of traditional dials, displaying your speed and route guidance. As before, the C-Class is also available as an estate, and a coupe and convertible will soon be joining the lineup. Plug-in hybrid versions will join the selection of powertrains at some point after its launch next year. But buyers looking to get their hands on one of the first new C-Classes will have to settle for either a regular petrol or diesel model, or a mild hybrid-assisted 2-litre producing 254 brake horsepower. fast AMG versions are on their way, although not with the roaring V8 we're used to. Instead, they'll use electrically assisted 4 cylinders, which is disappointing, but a sign of the times. However, even if you opt for the most basic cooking model, the C-Class does seem rather pricey, especially when compared to its old rivals from BMW and Audi. The starting price is just under £39,000, a decent chunk more than entry-level 3 Series or A4s. So what does the new Mercedes have that its competitors don't? Well, all models come absolutely filled with equipment. The base model Sport trim comes with that fabulous infotainment screen, the digital instrument panel, LED headlights, adaptive suspension, and the usual host of safety equipment.
But is that enough to persuade buyers away from BMW and Audi? Well, starting with the BMW, and it's easy to see why it remains one of the most popular saloon cars on the market. Its rear-wheel drive layout and great engine selection make even the most basic model fun to drive. It's also one of BMW's more attractive cars in its current lineup, especially in estate form. For a coupe or convertible, you'll need to sacrifice some of the good looks and opt for a Benestrilled 4 Series. So how about the Audi? Well, it may lack the driving character of the BMW, but it is comfortable and incredibly well made. Its mild hybrid system works well, and there's a broad range of petrol and diesel engines to choose from with either front or all-wheel drive.
However, as impressive as the BMW and Audi may be, they have immediately been aged by the C-Class. Its stunning cabin and S-Class tech will be a huge draw to buyers.
After the break, Porsche's latest EV takes on a V8 Audi and the new BMW X4.
Coming up, the new Porsche estate. But first,
Are you concerned that there simply aren't enough coupe SUVs on the market in 2022? Well, worry not. BMW is back with a new X4, the curvy sibling of the equally new X3. Continuing the trend of recent BMW designs, the X4 has got much chunkier. The front end has a larger kidney grille and thinner headlights. Perhaps not one of the all-time great BMW designs, but we'll leave you to decide if it looks better than the X3. Following the coupe silhouette along the side of the car will reveal a rear end with the same issue as the front. Being so big, it's hard to adapt the smaller 4 Series styling cues to the SUV. That being said, it definitely looks more up-to-date than the previous iteration of the car. The flowing ducktail spoiler and thin taillights would make for a good-looking car if it were carrying a little less blubber. Inside, it looks pretty much like anything else from the current BMW lineup, and that's certainly no bad thing. More conservative than an equivalent Mercedes, its classic proportions and quality materials will appeal to any serial BMW owner. The start-stop button and gear selector have been moved around, improving ergonomics, while the 4 Series has lent its new vents. The large 12.3-inch touchscreen is hard to miss on centre stage of the dashboard. Replacing the old instrument cluster is yet another large digital screen. As BMW develops it, the infotainment system will be upgraded with over-the-air updates. In the UK, you're limited to a mild hybrid diesel with either 187 or 282 brake horsepower. But for those that want to go fast, there is this, the X4M competition. It's powered by the same 503 bhp straight 6 as the old car, but it produces more torque. Remarkably, that is enough to get the X4M from 0 to 62 in just 3.8 seconds.
However, this coupe SUV market is getting rather crowded, and as such the X4 has some stiff competition to contend with, namely the Mercedes GLC Coupe and the Audi Q5 Sportback. With a larger boot, fuel tank and second row headroom, the BMW claims the lead as the more practical of the three offerings. However, it is difficult to look past the X4's styling, especially when Mercedes does such a better job of making an SUV look like a sleek saloon. The GLC though loses out on interior styling. It looks decidedly last gen compared with the classy X4 cabin, especially when compared to Merc's latest EVs. The Audi puts forward a better case. The styling is bang on, while the interior blends sensible family car with tech-filled luxury car perfectly.
If you ask us, we prefer the regular versions of these cars, but if you simply must have a high-riding coupe, it's the BMW or Audi for us.
With the electric Taycan now firmly cemented as one of Porsche's most popular models, the lineup is being expanded. We've already seen the rugged, outdoorsy, high-riding Cross Turismo, and now there's a more road-focused version called the Sport Turismo. Essentially a Taycan estate, it might just be the best-looking version yet. Like the off-roady Cross Turismo, this new car gets an extended roofline providing extra luggage space and even some more headroom. The taller roofline gives an extra 45mm of space in the back, as well as allowing the front seats to be adjusted to a higher position than in the regular saloon. Boot capacity depends on what spec you go for, but in any guise it'll be a bit smaller than most typical estate cars, but significantly more roomy than the regular car. It also has the added benefit of an extra boot under the bonnet thanks to its lack of an engine. This is a new Porsche though, so you're not really interested in how practical it is. The Sport Turismo follows the same format as the saloon. The entry-level car gets rear-wheel drive and 402 brake horsepower. It'll hit 62 miles per hour in a shade under 5.5 seconds and hit a top speed of 143. Next up is the all-wheel drive 4S with 523 brake horsepower. This is the one to go for if you're after maximum mileage in your Taycan with a WLTP range of 309 miles. Then there's the latest spec to enter the Taycan range, the GTS. Porsche calls it the sporty all-rounder of the range. It gets 590 brake horsepower and can hit 62 miles per hour from a standstill in 3.7 seconds onto a top speed of 155. The suspension has been tweaked to improve the handling, and the optional rear axle steering has been upgraded too, meaning this should be a great EV for spirited driving. To help it stand out from other Taycans, it gets darker tinted trim inside and out and plenty of Porsche's Race Tex fabric, the brand's own version of Alcantara. The range is 313 miles thanks to a 93.4 kilowatt-hour battery, which Porsche calls Performance Battery Plus. Next up are the Turbo and Turbo S, with 671 and 752 brake horsepower respectively. The oddly named turbo models are the ones to go for if you want some real acceleration. In Turbo S form, the Taycan Sport Turismo will hit 62 from rest in just 2.8 seconds with help from its launch control system.
But while this may be the fastest accelerating estate car in the world right now, it's far from the only option. This is an old favourite, the iconic Audi RS6. While the 592 horsepower V8 might not provide the instant shove of the Porsche, it does supply a fabulous soundtrack. It's around half a second slower to 62 than the Turbo S Taycan, but has a much higher top speed of 189. And while it's hardly a Toyota Prius, it does give a nod towards the environment with a 48-volt mild hybrid system that reduces emissions around town and saves on fuel.
In many ways, these two barnstorming estate cars are like bookends. The big Audi is likely to be one of the last fire-breathing family estates, a supercar slayer with room for your dog, while the Porsche is taking the baton of practical performance into the next generation.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we check out Ford's latest special edition 4x4, the new Bronco Everglades.